Good day, everyone! Do you know what is American literature? American literature is literature written or produced in the United States of America and its preceding colonies. Before the founding on the United States, the British colonies on the eastern coast of the present-day United States were heavily influenced by English literature. Let's talk about it and see what it's all about.
Good day everyone, I'm Lance Anastasio and let's explore the historical background of literature during U.S. colonialism in Philippines. So, in historical background, the Filipino revolutionists won against the Spaniards that colonized us for 333 years. So, in that, with the help of Americans, with the help of militaries of US, we gained the freedom and peace against the Spaniards. And in June 12, 1898, our flag was hosted and it symbolized independence and also the freedom of Philippines against the Spaniards. And next is Emilio Aguinaldo was selected as the first Republic President of the Philippines that lead us as an independent country. And also the peace movement was started in year of 1910. And because of that movement, many Filipinos started writing again, such as plays, novels, essays, stories, poetry, and news reports. So we all know that we have a writer or writers before or during the Spaniards colonialism. So, uh, for example, Dr. Jose Rizal. But after that war, after the Spaniards colonized us, many Filipinos was started writing again. Not not only or let's say not there they don't focus on only one theme, which is the encouragement to fight against our freedom, but also to different themes that uh, many writers use on their literature. So next, nationalism of the people remained undaunted. And in that era, there's a three newspaper that was published. Next, first one is El Nuevo Dia, or in the English translation, that it is meaning the new day. That was written by Sergio Osmeña. Next, El Grito del Pueblo, or in English, The Call of Nation, that was published or that was written by Pascual Poblete. Next is El Renacimiento, or in English, The Rebirth, that was written by Rafael Palma. So during U.S. Colonialism, American influenced the Philippines in many aspects, or let's say the culture of American was used as an influence, or American influence us um, using their or let's say the culture influence us with the help of American. So in many aspects, we learn from their culture, such as in clothing, which is the example of our that I use or that I wear now. In housings, we have they have a different style on house, so that many Filipino adapt it, but not not all the Filipino, because there's many Filipinos stay, or some of Filipinos stayed on their own culture when it, or on their own style when it comes to housings. Let's say in foods that was, let's say, that was until now we ate or we adapt it in many restaurants, and also even in education system. So because of that, uh, in education system, in that year or in that era, they serve the English language, which is their official language, or the US English, as a medium of instruction, or MOI. So it teach or it uses as a language to teach the students, or to teach to teach in Filipino students in schools. Next, they built American private schools. Uh, for example, the Silliman University. That school, it was the first private American school that serves, or that built in the Philippines.
The Spanish-American War, which started in Cuba, changed the Philippine history. Cuba was colonized by the Spaniards, so the Cuban wants the total independence from them. The US government sent the USS Maine to check on the Americans in the Cuba, since they were have the partnership with Cuba, as they are importing and exporting sugar from them. USS Maine dispatched to Havana, as it was in a dock of a port. On the port, it was suddenly explode. Some people says the explosion come from the inside of the USS Maine. Some people says that the Spaniards was the output of the explosion. US colony. Civil government was established by the Americans in 1901, with William Howard Taft as the first American Governor General of the Philippines. English was declared as the official language, and 600 American teachers were imported aboard by the USS Thomas, or they were called actually the Thomasites. During the Spanish period, the Spaniards had given enormous land properties to the Catholic Church. One of the first things the Americans did was to take care of the redistribution of these land properties. To do so, they first had to pay an amount of 7.2 million US dollars to the Vatican in 1904. Small farmers, or the tenants, didn't get any land. However, the land became property of some large landowners. Most of the small farmers couldn't pay the ask price, or couldn't prove that they were the former owners of the land. After the successful colonization of the Americans in the Philippines, they created a new rule that all people should be followed. In this time, the Americans presented a new education system in the Philippines, wherein they sent teachers, or were called the Thomasites, to teach the Filipinos.
Good day everyone, I'm Lance Anastasio, and let's explore the historical background of literature during US colonialism in Philippines. So, in historical background, the Filipino revolutionists won against the Spaniards that colonized us for 133 years. So, in that, with the help of Americans, with the help of militaries of US, we gained the freedom and peace against the Spaniards. And in June 12, 1898, our flag was hosted, that and it symbolized independence and also the freedom of Philippines against the Spaniards. And next is Emilio Aguinaldo was selected as the first Republic President of the Philippines that led us as independent country. And also the peace movement was started in year of 1910, and because of that movement, many Filipinos started writing again, uh, such as plays, novels, essays, stories, poetry, and news reports. So um, we all know that we have a writer or writers before or during the Spaniards colonialism. So, uh, for example, Dr. Jose Rizal. But after that war, after the Spaniards colonized us, many Filipinos was started writing again. Not not only or let's say not they don't focus on only one theme, which is the encouragement to fight against our freedom, but also to different themes that uh, many writers use on their literature. So next, nationalism of the people remained undaunted, and in that era, there's a three newspaper that was published. Next, first one is El Nuevo Dia, or in the English translation, that it is meaning the new day. That was written by Sergio Osmeña. Next, El Grito del Pueblo, or in English, The Call of Nation, that was published or that was written by Pascual Poblete. Next is El Renacimiento, or in English, The Rebirth, that was written by Rafael Palma. So during U.S. Colonialism, American influenced the Philippines in many aspects. Or let's say the culture of American was used as an influence, or American influence us um, using their or let's say the culture influence us with the help of American. So in many aspects, we learn from their culture, such as in clothing, which is the example of our that I use or that I wear now. In housings, we have they have a different style on house, so that many Filipino adapt it, but not all the Filipino, because there's many Filipinos stay, or some of Filipinos stayed on their own culture when it or on their own style when it comes to housings. Let's say in foods that was let's say that was until now we ate or we adapt it in many restaurants, and also even in education system. So because of that, in education system, in that year or in that era, they serve the English language, which is their official language, or the U.S. English, as a medium of instruction, or MOI. So it uses as a language to teach the students, to teach to teach in Filipino students in schools. Next, they built American private schools. Uh, for example, the Silliman University. That school, it was the first private American school that serves or that built in the Philippines.
Good day, Philippines. This is Rogelyn Contra speaking. At this time, some of the information that you will be exposing is that authors from the Philippines during the American period. One of the key moments that shaped our Philippine literary tradition was the American period. Considering the enormous amount of writing generated during this time, Philippine literature saw a tremendous blooming. The ringing of names inscribed in the Philippines canon of literature, as well as the introduction and growth of new literary genres, as well as contributions to the already rich, and that is Philippine literature in Filipino language. So, majority among the Filipinos were beginning to read and write. Most of them started to read and became informed with what is happening around us. As a result, more and more Filipinos became writers, poets, and dramatists. Francisco Baltasar's epic poem, Florante at Laura, and Father Modesto de Castro's social novel, Urbana at Felisa, became the inspiration of the Filipino Tagalog writers. Some of the more popular writers during this period were Lupi K. Santos was a novelist, poet, and grammarian. He was called Apo by the Tagalog writers. And he was also dubbed as ama ng Balarilang Filipino, or father of national language grammar. The novel Banaag at Sikat was his masterpiece, and for his contributions for the development of Filipino grammar and Tagalog orthography. Next is we have
Jose.
Corazon de Jesus was also known as Joseng Batute. He was deemed as Makata ng Pag-ibig. One of the premier poets of the Philippines, wrote over 4,000 poems and was known as the king of the Balagtasan, or versified debate. His style reflects the love for the country and social consciousness. He wrote the nationalistic poem Bayan Ko and Isang Punong Kahoy. An elegy was his masterpiece. Next is we have Amado B. Hernandez was crowned Makata ng mga manggagawa because his poems revolves on the lives of city laborers. He wrote the poems Isang Dipang Langit, which later won a Republic Cultural Heritage Award, Bayang Malaya, which later won Balagtas Award, and Muntinlupa, while being incarcerated in the Muntinlupa jail because of his involvement in labor riots. The famous poem Ang Panday was his masterpiece. His socio-political novels were based on his experience as a guerrilla, as a labor leader, and as a political detainee. We also have Valeriano Hernandez Peña, was popular known as Tandang Anong. He used Kuntil Butil as his pen name. The novel Nena at Teneng was his masterpiece. Next is we have Inigo Ed Regalado, was the son of Odalagur, a popular writer during the Spanish period. He was a popular storyteller, novelist, and a newspaper during the American period. It was during his time when the golden age of the Tagalog novel works are Madaling Araw or Dawn, Kung Magmahalang Dalaga or How a Maiden Loves, Ang 14 na Awa or The 14 Graces, and he also wrote Port Talembang, which is Lingguhang Mapagpatawa at Manunokso, which published the first regular comic strip in the Philippines entitled Si Kiko at Si Angge. Si Kiko at Si Angge, okay? In 1992. In the Filipino Tagalog poetry, inspired by the propagandists and the revolutionists, writers and poets, more and more Filipinos started using the pen to share their sentiments and emotions. A lot of Filipino poets emerged during this period. Hence, Julian Cruz Balmaceda, a popular writer, dramatist, and a critic, classified these poets based on the poems that they wrote. They are classified as poets of the heart, mga makata ng pag-ibig, poets of life, mga makata ng buhay, and poets of the stage, mga makata ng entablado.
Oh, hi there, folks! Are you actually curious of who are those famous pips during the American era? Yes? Alright! Then let me walk you into our Museum of Story Weavers. Alright, so the first author that we have is Maximo Maguiat Calao. He was born in the town of Lipa, Batangas in the Philippines. He was a Filipino political scientist and novelist. He was the first Filipino head of the Department of Political Science at the University of the Philippines. He also argued for Filipino independence for the United States. His famous works are his book entitled The Case for the Filipino, The Present Government of the Philippines, and the guidebook on the Philippine Question. The second author that we have is Paz Marquez Benitez. Paz Marquez Benitez was a Filipino short story writer, educator, and editor. Her career as a woman educator, as well as her contribution as a writer, are seen as important steps within the advancement of women in professional careers, as well as in the development of Philippine literature. Additionally, during the American era, she was also a beauty queen. Her famous works are her short story entitled Dead Star and A Night in the Hills in 1925. The third author that we have is Severino Reyes. Severino Reyes y Rivera was a Filipino writer and playwright. He used the pen name Lola Bashang, and he was nicknamed as Don Binoy. During the American era, he wrote a total of 58 plays, of which 3 were in collaboration with Maestro Tolentino, who wrote the music entitled Walang Sugat, Ang Kalupi, and Marites de la Patwa. His other well-known plays were Mindamora, Huling Dati, Luha ng Kagalakan, and Ang Bagong Fausto. The next author that we have is Juan C. Laya. He was born on July 12, 1911. He finished his Bachelor of Science in Education and a master's degree at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and his graduate studies in English at Indiana University, USA. His famous work is his book entitled His Native Soil in 1940. This book made him won the first prize in the first Commonwealth Literary Awareness. The last author that we have is Thomas A. Remigio. Remigio's best-known work, Malaya, was considered as one of the finest nationalist plays written during the American period. However, during the Spanish period, Remigio joined the La Liga Filipina and the Katipunan. Hence, in 1896, he was arrested and deported to Spain upon his return to the Philippines in 1899. He continued writing plays like Mga Santong Tao, Ang Weteng, and Luha ng Ina. And those are the famous people or famous author during the American era.
So, good day everyone. I am Erin Francesca Aranda, and I am here to continue on what Miss Precious discussed, which are the famous events in the Philippines during American period. So, for the fourth one, in 1901, Aguinaldo was captured by U.S. forces under the command of General Frederick Funston. This event was a crucial moment in the conflict because it significantly weakened the Filipino resistance. With Aguinaldo in captivity, the Filipino revolutionary movement lost its central leadership, making it more challenging for them to continue the fight for independence. So, General Funston's successful capture of Aguinaldo marked a turning point in the war and contributed to the eventual American victory and the establishment of American colonial rule in the Philippines. So, next is, in April 1901, Aguinaldo makes peace with the U.S., likely refers to Emilio Aguinaldo, a Filipino revolutionary leader negotiating or agreeing to a peace settlement with the United States. This event might be related to the Philippine-American War in 1899 to 1902, when the Philippines was under American colonial rule. Such negotiations could have had significant historical and political implications. And for the last event, U.S. military role in the Philippines ends, indicates that the United States has concluded its military presence and operations in the Philippines. This could refer rather to the conclusion of the specific military mission, the withdrawal of American troops from the country, or a change in the nature of their military involvement. Such events often have important geopolitical and strategic implications.
Good day everyone, I am Precious Love RS2, so now we're going to our next destination, which is the famous events during the American period. So for our first event is Emilio Aguinaldo officially declares a war on United States. During this period, Filipino people was still fighting the independence even after the Spanish-American War. So on February 4, 1899, after 3 Filipino troops was killed by the US troops, this event turned more intense and complicated between America and Philippines, wherein President Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed the war against the United States, who rejected the claims of Filipino independence. So for our second event is the Battle of Manila. So in the Battle of Manila, this is the largest and first battle of Philippine-American War during 1899 between February 4 to 5. So what happened in this battle is Filipino troops had the advance attack on American forces in which they took control of some Americans. But then Filipino troops are not quite many as the American soldiers, and they doesn't have the proper and organized plans to attack the Americans. The result of this war is Americans won the battle against the Filipino troops, and they are able to capture the city, and many Filipino soldiers died after the war. So the third event is the American capture Malolos. The capture of Malolos, or the Battle of Malolos, was successfully captured on March 31, 1899 by the Americans. So what happened in the Battle of Malolos is American advancing towards to Malolos. So President Emilio Aguinaldo was left and moved to San Isidro, Nueva Ecija province. So the reason why that American forces captured the Malolos is because after they thought that Filipino soldiers was already surrendered. But then they received a gunshot fire from the Filipino soldiers, and it cost the lives of American soldiers even though they are successful capture the Malolos. But even though they are successfully captured the Malolos, they failed to control the Filipino people in Malolos.
Hi! Good day, everyone! Here are the famous literature in this famous period of American colonization in the Philippines. Did you know that this literature that is found here in this period is so rich and is very interesting to know? Here are some facts about it. There are many different kinds of literary genres, but only few have flourished in this time period. These are poetry, zarzuela, short story, and the novel. Let's go back to the genre of poetry because I have a trivia for you. Did you know that poetry was written in 3 languages? Filipino, Spanish, and English. But let us add the different dialects of the Philippines. Now, here I would like to introduce to you few of the most famous literatures in this time period. The first one, Kahapon, Ngayon at Bukas, written by Aurelio Tolentino. Second one, Tanikalang Ginto, The third one, Malaya, written by Thomas Remigio. The fourth one, Walang Sugat, written by Severino Reyes. The fifth one, Dead Stars, written by Paz Marquez Benitez. Last but not the least, Footnote to Youth, written by Jose Garcia Villa. Here are the few samples and few literary pieces that were created in this time period of American colonization in the Philippines. For more information and for more literary works, here is Jeline.
So good day everyone, my name is Jillian Al Pacifico and I will discuss the famous lit in American period. So Philippine literature in English, in a way we can say that we can trace the beginnings of Philippine literature in English with the coming of the Americans. So for the purpose, it is divided in this period into the three times frame, namely the period of reorientation, 1998 to 1910. The second one is the period of imitation, 1910 to 1925. And lastly, the period of self-discovery, 1925 to 1941. So, the other forms of literature, the following are those recognized in the field of Ilocano literature. So, during the American period in the Philippines, the development of literature was influenced by two key factors: the introduction of the pre-public education and the use of English as the medium of instructions. This led to the exposure of Filipino to Anglo-American culture and thinking. So initially, Philippine literature in English imitate American writing styles, particularly in fiction, with an emphasis on the short stories. So, in 1925, Paz Marquez Benitez short story Dead Stars. So, in 1936, the Philippine Writers League was formed, led by Salvador P. Lopez. Banaag at Sikat by Lope K. Santos, written in 1906. Tagalog novelists explored faith, love, and social justice themes. Balagtasan, a poetic debate, was introduced in 1924 by Francisco F. Balagtas and Jose Corazon de Jesus, known as Huseng Batute, became the first king of Balagtasan. Other regions had similar debates, like Bukanig in Ilocos, and Crosatan in Pampanga. In 1932, Alejandro G. Abadilla usured in modernism with Ako ang Daigdig, using free verse. American colonization promoted English in education, expanding knowledge, access, and creating a middle class. English as a medium shaped Filipino culture and literature. Initially, Philippines literature in English imitate American styles.